Christopher Columbus. Italian explorer Christopher Columbus discovered the New World of the Americas on an expedition sponsored by King Ferdinand of Spain in 1492. Who was Christopher Columbus? Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer and navigator. In 1492, he sailed across the Atlantic Ocean from Spain in the Santa Maria, with the Pinta and the Nina ships alongside, hoping to find a new route to Asia. Instead, he and his crew landed on an island in present-day Bahamas, claiming it for Spain and mistakenly discovering the Americas. Between 1493 and 1504, he made 3 more voyages to the Caribbean and South America, believing until his death that he had found a shorter route to Asia. Columbus has been credited and blamed for opening up the Americas to European colonization. Quick facts. Full name: Cristoforo Colombo. Born c. 1451. Died May 20th, 1506. Birthplace: Genoa, Italy. Spouse: Filippa Perestrello, circa 1479 to 1484. Children: Diego and Fernando. Where was Columbus born? Christopher Columbus, whose real name was Cristoforo Colombo, was born in 1451 in the Republic of Genoa, part of what is now Italy. He is believed to have been the son of Domenico Colombo and Susanna Fontanarassa and had 4 siblings: brothers Bartholomew, Giovanni, and Giacomo, and a sister named Biancinetta. He was an apprentice in his father's wool-weaving business and studied sailing and map-making. In his 20s, Columbus moved to Lisbon, Portugal, and later resettled in Spain, which remained his home base for the duration of his life. First voyages. Columbus first went to sea as a teenager, participating in several trading voyages in the Mediterranean and Aegean seas. One such voyage to the island of Chios in modern-day Greece brought him the closest he would ever come to Asia. His first voyage into the Atlantic Ocean in 1476 nearly cost him his life, as the commercial fleet he was sailing with was attacked by French privateers off the coast of Portugal. His ship was burned, and Columbus had to swim to the Portuguese shore. He made his way to Lisbon, where he eventually settled and married Filippa Perestrello. The couple had 1 son, Diego, around 1480. His wife died when Diego was a young boy, and Columbus moved to Spain. He had a second son, Fernando, who was born out of wedlock in 1488 with Beatriz Enriquez de Arana. After participating in several other expeditions to Africa, Columbus learned about the Atlantic currents that flow east and west from the Canary Islands. Columbus' 1492 route and ships. The Asian islands near China and India were fabled for their spices and gold, making them an attractive destination for Europeans, but Muslim domination of the trade routes through the Middle East made travel eastward difficult. Columbus devised a route to sail west across the Atlantic to reach Asia, believing it would be quicker and safer. He estimated the Earth to be a sphere and the distance between the Canary Islands and Japan to be about 2,300 miles. Many of Columbus' contemporary nautical experts disagreed. They adhered to the now known to be accurate 2nd century BCE estimate of the Earth's circumference at 25,000 miles, which made the actual distance between the Canary Islands and Japan about 12,200 statute miles. Despite their disagreement with Columbus on matters of distance, they concurred that a westward voyage from Europe would be an uninterrupted water route. Columbus proposed a 3-ship voyage of discovery across the Atlantic, first to the Portuguese king, then to Genoa, and finally to Venice. He was rejected each time. In 1486, he went to the Spanish monarchy of Queen Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon. Their focus was on a war with the Muslims, and their nautical experts were skeptical, so they initially rejected Columbus. The idea, however, must have intrigued the monarchs, because they kept Columbus on a retainer. Columbus continued to lobby the royal court, and soon, the Spanish army captured the last Muslim stronghold in Granada in January 1492. Shortly thereafter, the monarchs agreed to finance his expedition. In late August 1492, Columbus left Spain from the port of Palos de la Frontera. He was sailing with 3 ships: Columbus in the larger Santa Maria, a type of ship known as a carrack, with the Pinta and the Nina, both Portuguese-style caravels, alongside. Where did Columbus land in 1492? Artwork from 1877 depicts Christopher Columbus setting foot on land during his famous voyage in 1492. On October 12, 1492, after 36 days of sailing westward across the Atlantic, Columbus and several crewmen set foot on an island in present-day Bahamas, claiming it for Spain. There, his crew encountered a timid but friendly group of natives who were open to trade with the sailors. They exchanged glass beads, cotton balls, parrots, and spears. The Europeans also noticed bits of gold the natives wore for adornment. Columbus and his men continued their journey, visiting the islands of Cuba, which he thought was mainland China, and Hispaniola, now Haiti and the Dominican Republic, which Columbus thought might be Japan, and meeting with the leaders of the native population. During this time, the Santa Maria was wrecked on a reef off the coast of Hispaniola. With the help of some islanders, Columbus' men salvaged what they could and built the settlement Villa de la Navidad, Christmas Town. With lumber from the ship, 39 men stayed behind to occupy the settlement. Convinced his exploration had reached Asia, he set sail for home with the 2 remaining ships. Returning to Spain in 1493, Columbus gave a glowing but somewhat exaggerated report and was warmly received by the royal court. Later voyages across the Atlantic. In 1493, Columbus took to the seas on his second expedition and explored more islands in the Caribbean Ocean. Upon arrival at Hispaniola, Columbus and his crew discovered the Navidad settlement had been destroyed with all the sailors massacred. Spurning the wishes of the local queen, Columbus established a forced labor policy upon the native population to rebuild the settlement and explore for gold, believing it would be profitable. His efforts produced small amounts of gold and great hatred among the native population. Before returning to Spain, Columbus left his brothers Bartholomew and Giacomo to govern the settlement on Hispaniola and sailed briefly around the larger Caribbean islands, further convincing himself he had discovered the outer islands of China. It wasn't until his third voyage that Columbus actually reached the South American mainland, exploring the Orinoco River in present-day Venezuela. By this time, conditions at the Hispaniola settlement had deteriorated to the point of near mutiny, with settlers claiming they had been misled by Columbus' claims of riches and complaining about the poor management of his brothers. The Spanish crown sent a royal official who arrested Columbus and stripped him of his authority. He returned to Spain in chains to face the royal court. The charges were later dropped, but Columbus lost his titles as governor of the Indies and, for a time, much of the riches made during his voyages. After convincing King Ferdinand that one more voyage would bring the abundant riches promised, Columbus went on his fourth and final voyage across the Atlantic Ocean in 1502. This time he traveled along the eastern coast of Central America in an unsuccessful search for a route to the Indian Ocean. A storm wrecked one of his ships, stranding the captain and his sailors on the island of Cuba. During this time, local islanders, tired of the Spaniards' poor treatment and obsession with gold, refused to give them food. In a spark of inspiration, Columbus consulted an almanac and devised a plan to punish the islanders by taking away the moon. On February 29, 1504, a lunar eclipse alarmed the natives enough to re-establish trade with the Spaniards. A rescue party finally arrived, sent by the royal governor of Hispaniola in July, and Columbus and his men were taken back to Spain in November 1504. In the 2 remaining years of his life, Columbus struggled to recover his reputation. Although he did regain some of his riches in May 1505, his titles were never returned. How did Columbus die? Columbus probably died of severe arthritis following an infection on May 20, 1506, in Valladolid, Spain. At the time of his death, he still believed he had discovered a shorter route to Asia. There are questions about the location of his burial site. According to the BBC, Columbus' remains moved at least 3 or 4 times over the course of 400 years, including from Valladolid to Seville, Spain in 1509, then to Santo Domingo in what is now the Dominican Republic in 1537, then to Havana, Cuba in 1795, and back to Seville in 1898. As a result, Seville and Santo Domingo have both laid claim to being Columbus' true burial site. It is also possible his bones were mixed up with another person's amid all of their travels. Santa Maria Discovery Claim. In May 2014, Columbus made headlines as news broke that a team of archaeologists might have found the Santa Maria off the north coast of Haiti. Barry Clifford, the leader of this expedition, told the independent newspaper that all geographical, underwater topography, and archaeological evidence strongly suggests this wreck is Columbus' famous flagship, the Santa Maria. After a thorough investigation by the UN agency UNESCO, it was determined the wreck dates from a later period and was located too far from shore to be the famed ship. Columbian Exchange, a complex legacy. Columbus has been credited for opening up the Americas to European colonization, as well as blamed for the destruction of the native peoples of the islands he explored. Ultimately, he failed to find that what he set out for, a new route to Asia and the riches it promised. In what is known as the Columbian Exchange, Columbus' expedition set in motion the widespread transfer of people, plants, animals, diseases, and cultures that greatly affected nearly every society on the planet. The horse from Europe allowed Native American tribes in the Great Plains of North America to shift from a nomadic to a hunting lifestyle. Wheat from the Old World fast became a main food source for people in the Americas. Coffee from Africa and sugar cane from Asia became major cash crops for Latin American countries. And foods from the Americas, such as potatoes, tomatoes, and corn, became staples for Europeans and helped increase their populations. The Columbian Exchange also brought new diseases to both hemispheres, though the effects were greatest in the Americas. Smallpox from the Old World killed millions, decimating the Native American populations to mere fractions of their original numbers. This more than any other factor allowed for European domination of the Americas. The overwhelming benefits of the Columbian Exchange went to the Europeans initially and eventually to the rest of the world. The Americas were forever altered, and the once vibrant cultures of the indigenous civilizations were changed and lost, denying the world any complete understanding of their existence. Columbus Day, an evolving holiday. Protesters demonstrate in front of a Christopher Columbus statue at City Hall in Columbus, Ohio. The statue was removed in 2020. As more Italians began to immigrate to the United States and settle in major cities during the 19th century, they were subject to religious and ethnic discrimination. This included a mass lynching of 11 Sicilian immigrants in 1891 in New Orleans. Just 1 year after this horrific event, President Benjamin Harrison called for the first national observance of Columbus Day on October 12, 1892, to mark the 400th anniversary of his arrival in the Americas. Italian Americans saw this honorary act for Columbus as a way of gaining acceptance. Colorado became the first state to officially observe Columbus Day in 1906, and, within 5 years, 14 other states followed. Thanks to a joint resolution of Congress, the day officially became a federal holiday in 1934 during the administration of Franklin D. Roosevelt. In 1970, Congress declared the holiday would fall on the second Monday in October each year. But as Columbus' legacy, specifically his exploration's impacts on indigenous civilizations, began to draw more criticism, more people chose not to take part. As of 2023, approximately 29 states no longer celebrate Columbus Day, and around 195 cities have renamed it or replaced with the alternative Indigenous Peoples Day. The latter isn't an official holiday, but the federal government recognized its observance in 2022 and 2023. Former President Joe Biden called it a day in honor of our diverse history and the indigenous peoples who contribute to shaping this nation. One of the most notable cities to move away from celebrating Columbus Day in recent years is the state capital of Columbus, Ohio, which is named after the explorer. In 2018, Mayor Andrew Ginther announced the city would remain open on Columbus Day and instead celebrate a holiday on Veterans Day. In July 2020, the city also removed a 20-plus foot metal statue of Columbus from the front of City Hall. Quotes, "I went to sea from the most tender age and have continued in a sea life to this day. Whoever gives himself up to this art wants to know the secrets of nature here below. It is more than 40 years that I have been thus engaged. Wherever anyone has sailed, there I have sailed. Speaking of myself, little profit had I won from 20 years of service, during which I have served with so great labors and perils. For today I have no roof over my head in Castile. If I wish to sleep or eat, I have no place to which to go, save an inn or tavern, and most often, I lack the wherewithal to pay the score. They say that there is in that land an infinite amount of gold. and that the people wear corals on their heads and very large bracelets of coral on their feet and arms, and that with coral they adorn and inlay chairs and chests and tables. This island and all the others are very fertile to a limitless degree, and this island is extremely so. In it, there are many harbors on the coast of the sea, beyond comparison with others that I know in Christendom, and many rivers, good and large, which is marvelous. Our Almighty God has shown me the highest favor, which, since David, he has not shown to anybody. Already the road is open to gold and pearls, and it may surely be hoped that precious stones, spices, and 1,000 other things will also be found. I have now seen so much irregularity that I have come to another conclusion respecting the earth, namely, that it is not round as they describe, but of the form of a pear. In all the countries visited by your Highness's ships, I have caused a high cross to be fixed upon every headland and have proclaimed, to every nation that I have discovered, the lofty estate of your Highnesses and of your court in Spain. I ought to be judged as a captain sent from Spain to the Indies, to conquer a nation numerous and warlike, with customs and religions altogether different to ours. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.